We're going to go on with the Bridge to Terebithia on chapter number 3. Remember, Leslie just started at the new school and was in Jesse's class. The children ate lunch at their desks. The county had been promising Lark Creek a lunchroom for 20 years, but there never seemed to be enough money. Jess had been so careful not to lose his recess time that even now he chewed his bologna sandwich with tight lips shut and his eyes on his heart. Around him, conversations buzzed. They were not supposed to talk during lunch, but it was the first day, and even Monster Mouth Myers shot fewer flames on the first day. "She's eating blubber," 2 seats up from where he sat. Mary Lou Peoples was at work being the second snottiest girl in 5th grade. "Yogurt, stupid. It's just yogurt. Don't you watch TV?" This was Wanda K. Moore, the snottiest, who sat immediately in front of Jess. "Yuck, yogurt. Why couldn't they leave people in peace? Why shouldn't Leslie Burke eat anything she darn well pleased?" He forgot that he was trying to eat carefully and took a loud slurp of his milk. Wanda Moore turned around, all funny. "Jessie Aarons, that noise is horrible." He glared at her hard and gave another big slurp of his milk. "You are disgusting," she said. Bring! The recess bell rang, and with a yelp, the boys were pushing for their place at the door. "The boys will all sit down while the girls line up and go to the playground. Ladies first." The boys quivered on the edge of their seat. Would she never let them go? "All right, boys, now you can go." They didn't give her a chance to change her mind. They were halfway down the hall. The first 2 out began dragging their toes to make the finish line. The ground was rutted from the past rains, but had hardened in the late summer drought, so they had to give up on sneaker toes and draw the line with a stick. They were getting ready to race. The 5th grade boys, bursting out with new importance, ordered the 4th graders around, while the smaller boys tried to get included. "How many guys are going to run?" Gary Fulcher demanded. "Me, me, me," everyone yelled. "That's too many. No 1st, 2nd, or 3rd graders, except maybe Butcher's cousins and Timmy. The rest of you, be on your way. Go away." Shoulders shrugged, but the little boys backed away. "Okay, that leaves 27. Okay, stand still. Okay, 28. Greg?" "Right, 28 boys who want to run." "Okay, now, we'll have elimination like always. Count off by 4s. We'll run all the 1s together, then all the 2s and the 3s and the 4. We know, said Gary impatiently. Jess was a 4, so he would run with all the other boys who were a 4. He was impatient to run, but he really didn't mind having a chance to see how the others were doing. Fulcher was a 1, of course. He started everything with himself. Gary won the first heat easily and had plenty of breath left to boss around everyone else who was second. A few of the younger boys drifted off to play another game. Out of the corner of his eye, Jess saw someone coming down the upper field. He turned his back and pretended to concentrate on Fulcher's high-pitched command. "Hi!" Leslie came up beside him. "Ugh," he said. "Are you running?" "Later." Maybe he didn't look at her. She would go back to the upper field where she belonged. Gary told Earl Watson to bang the start. Jess watched. Nobody with much speed in that crowd. He kept his eyes on the shirt tails and went back. A fight broke out at the finish line between Jimmy and Clyde. Everyone rushed to see it. Jess was aware that Leslie Burke stayed at his elbow, but he was careful not to look at her. "Clyde! It was Clyde!" "It was a tie," Fulcher, the 4th grader, protested. "I was standing right here." "It was Clyde." Jimmy Mitchell's jaw was set. I won! You couldn't even see from way back there." "It was Clyde Deal." Gary ignored the protest. "We're wasting time. All 3s line up right now." Jimmy's fist went up. "This isn't fair." Gary turned his back and headed for the starting line. "Oh, let them both run in the finals. It's not going to hurt," said Jessie. Gary stopped walking and wheeled around to face him. Fulcher first glared and then at Leslie. "Next thing," he said. "Next thing, you're going to let some girl run?" Jessie's face was hot. "Sure," he said recklessly. "Why not?" And he deliberately turned toward Leslie. "You want to run?" "Sure," she said. "Why not?" "You're not scared to let a girl race you, Fulcher?" "Do you think she's good? I bet she's fast." For a minute, he thought Gary was going to sock him, and he stiffened. He mustn't let Fulcher suspect that he was scared of a little belt in the mouth. But instead, Gary broke into a trot and started bossing the threes into the line for their heat. "You can run with the fours, Leslie," he said it loudly to make sure Fulcher could hear him and then concentrate on the others. "See," he told himself, "you can stand up to a creep like Fulcher. No sweat." Bobby Miller won the threes easily, but he was the best of the fourth graders, almost as fast as Gary Fulcher, but not as good as me, Jesse thought. He was beginning to get really excited now. There was no one in the fours who could give him much of a race. Still, it would be better to give Fulcher a scare by running well in the heat. Leslie lined up beside him on the right. He moved a tiny bit to the left, but she didn't seem to notice. At the bang, Jesse went forward. It felt good, even the rough ground against the bottom of his worn sneakers. He was pumping and going fast. He could almost smell Gary Fulcher's surprise at his improvement. The crowd was noisier than they'd been during the other heats. Maybe they were all noticing. He wanted to look and see where the others were, but he resisted the temptation. It would seem conceited to look back. He concentrated on the line ahead. It was nearing with every step. "Oh, if Miss Bessie could see me now," Jesse thought. He felt it before he saw it. Someone was moving up on him. He automatically ran harder. Then the shape was there in his sideways vision. Then suddenly someone was pulling ahead. He forced himself now. His breath was choking him, and the sweat was in his eyes. But he saw the figure anyhow, and the faded cutoffs crossed the line 3 feet ahead of him. He didn't win. Leslie turned to face him, and with a wide smile on her tanned face, he stumbled and without a word began half walking, half trotting over the starting line. This was the day he was going to be champion, the best runner of the 4th and 5th grade. He hadn't even won his heat. There was no cheering at the end of the field. The rest of the boys seemed as stunned as he was. How could a girl beat him? The teasing would come later, he felt sure, but at least for the moment, none of them were talking. "Okay," Fulcher took over. He tried to appear very much in charge. "Okay, you guys, you can line up for the finals." He walked over to Leslie. "Okay, you had your fun. You can run up onto the hopscotch now." "But I won the heat," she said. Gary lowered his head like a bull. "Girls aren't supposed to play on the lower field. Better get up there before one of the teachers see you. I want to run." "You already did." "What's the matter, Fulcher?" All Jess's anger was bubbling. "What's the matter? You're scared to race her?" Fulcher first went up, but Jesse walked away from it. Fulcher would have to let her run now, he knew, and Fulcher did, angrily. She beat him. She came in first and turned her large, shining eyes on the bunch of dumb, sweating boys. The bell rang. Jess started across the lower field, his hands still deep in his pockets. She caught up with him. He took his hands out and began to trot toward the hill. She got him into enough trouble. She speeded up and refused to be shaken off. "Thanks," she said. "Yeah, for what?" "You're the only kid in the whole darn school who's worth shooting." I wasn't sure, he thought. Her voice was quivering, but he wasn't going to start feeling sorry for her. "Okay, so shoot me." On the bus that afternoon, he did something he had never thought he would do. He sat down beside May Bell. It was the only way he could make sure he wouldn't have Leslie sitting right next to him. Lord, that girl had no notion of what you did and didn't do. He stared out the window, but he knew she had come and was sitting across the aisle from him. He heard her say, "Jess," once, but the bus was noisy enough that he could pretend he didn't hear her. When they came to the shop, he grabbed Maybell's hand, his little sister, and dragged her off. Leslie was right behind him. But she didn't try to speak to him again, nor did she follow them. She just took off running to the old Perkins place. He couldn't help turning to watch. She ran as though it was her nature. It reminded him of the flight of the wild ducks in autumn. So smooth. The word beautiful came to mind, but he shook it away and hurried towards the house. Later we'll read Chapter 4, Rulers of Terebithia.